Alrighty, great day in the morning, great games at your table. I'm Jonathan Albin, and this is NycosRPG. We are here together on just double checking my calendar. It's still Friends Day. It's almost Chores Day. Right now, it's still Friends Day, and we're going to be having a guest with us for the episode tonight again. But before we get to that, I do want to take a brief moment. Here on NycosRPG, we talk all things role-playing and focus on games, mechanics, and game experiences that are drawn together through the NycosRPG mechanism, as well as my 50 years as a game master for Dungeons & Dragons. So if you have never been here before, welcome to the channel. If you have been before, make sure you have followed the channel here on Twitch so you'll be advised every time we do a new episode. And also check out our YouTube page over at NycosRPG on YouTube. Alrighty, so today is going to be, I know it's going to sound strange, but today is going to be a moron episode. And before anybody gets their arms up in arms about my word there, let me explain what I refer to when I mean that. And just a second, I got to pop it up here. And yes, a moron episode. That means it's more on a subject we've already covered. So this morning's episode was on the plight of NPCs and how the role-playing world has pretty much done them dirty, and how the Nykos mechanism looks at that differently. So today we're going to be talking about the NEPs and how they work a little bit more deeply. But before we get going on that, I did want to introduce you to my guest for today. She's a longtime supporter of this channel and 3-iteration participant in the realms of Nykos. I don't know what she wants to be called in terms of her online persona, but I know her as 100 different characters and Jean Acker. So, hello, Jean.
Hi, how are you tonight?
Outstanding. So glad to hear your voice. So, we are going to be talking about NEPs. And before we go into that, can you give what you consider to be a definition of a non-player character? Using all of your vast experience as a role player, what is a non-player character?
Well, it's everything from the arch villain to the innocent townspeople or people along the road that you pass by and never meet again. But usually these people, in some way and somehow, do interface with you during your travels and your sojourns in towns and villages. And they're real people. They live real lives. Um, they might have it in for you. You don't know it unless you pay attention. Um, but they're all the rest of the people in the towns and villages that you pass by and meet and help out and
Mm-hmm.
save, and or you buy the fruit from or your supplies from.
All right, so you've covered the gamut, and we talked this morning, and you were unfortunately not with us on air, but we talked about basically different categories of role playing and personalities, and I, as you know, I prefer the term persona over the term character. And part of that is actually embedded in the very concept here. When you speak of a character, even if you're talking about your individual personality, unless you're talking on the high end of the moral depth of who you are, generally if you say that you're quite a character, or you're going to portray a character, it's something that is generally two-dimensional, flat, and not you. In other words, when you say I'm going to be in character, you're going to be taking on the persona in a way that isn't who you are. And one of the things that I kind of always have focused on in role play is that you are the persona that you are portraying in terms of play. In the moment that you are interacting with the other players at the table, it is no longer Gene that's sitting there, but the persona that you are fulfilling in that role. Now, when we talked this morning, we also talked about 4 different categories of persona that are NEP. And the first one, I think, is the one that when you were talking earlier about the guy that you walk by on the street, I refer to them perhaps ingloriously, but as the window dressing. It's those people that give you the concept of feeling that the location is populated, that there are other people on the street, that it's not a desolate place, but they are not individuals that you would necessarily ever have any conversation or commerce with other than a tip of the hat and a how do you do. The window dressing pretty much pass through the scene uninterrupted, so to speak. They're doing their thing while the players are doing theirs. Can you think of a good example, Gene, where in the last week of games I've run, where you could pick out somebody that probably would have been window dressing in one of the scenes?
The nobles at the party.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so that's a really great example. The scene was a festive party put on by a well-off noble who had been reconnected with a lost relative, and therefore they were celebrating. And while the individuals at the party were to the community important personnel, important in terms of governance and such, they were not individuals that the players had any direct connection with, and therefore being able to eavesdrop on those conversations and overhear what was being said between other individuals, it almost demanded for you to not know who those people were, because if you were standing so close to somebody of whom you were familiar, I guess you'd have to agree that it's harder to eavesdrop on your friends than it is on other people, because other people, your friends would notice you. So that's a great example. I didn't have to give them any names. You knew they were well off. You knew they were probably of a variety of different species. So we didn't even have to go into the detail on who was in there. We just established that it's a room full of nobles.
They were the rich and the powerful.
Right, exactly. But it wasn't specifically the group looking for who those people were, although that could have been a different mission and it would have played out completely differently. But the point I was making is that window dressing adjusts to suit the purpose for the window dressing. So exactly right. Those nobles were the people having the conversations, but we didn't need to know who they were in particular. So when it comes to my description of window dressing, I generally try to use a couple of particular parts of speech when I describe them. So I will give a description of what they look like. Then I'll usually add an adjective and an adverb. So I'll say they are hurriedly nervous or cautiously optimistic or whatever, to give a feel for who that person is in more than that second dimension, so they feel like they are in the scene. If they really were just window dressing, you would walk by them and they'd be flat and I wouldn't have had to describe them. But the fact that I did does give at least some depth to who they are, on the off chance that a player wants to interact. I find it funny sometimes. I have a mental picture of what I want the scene to be like, and I start to describe it, and then my players take off with the ball and run. They go, "Oh, there's children playing in the street. Well, I want to kick a ball back to one of the kids." Okay, that wasn't going. They were just annoyingly noisy kids in the background, but okay, you're interacting with them, and having that opportunity, I think, is part of what makes a role-playing environment particularly appealing, because it feels like real life. When we walk through a park, we don't just see three elven children and two dwarf children and their nanny. We actually see kids playing, in the streets. So therefore, they need to be described as
Acknowledge.
being what they being what they are, so that the scene feels natural and normal.
And then, well, then there was the case of the, the nameless kitchen maid that was at the one party ahead of time where everything went wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and then she was here at this one,
Thank you
and
for
so
bringing that up. Yes, this is
and so one of the guys who had talked to her earlier was able to get more information again.
right. Right. Well, this is where another of the categories that we talked about, which are recurring persona, came to be. And a recurring persona is somebody who the party will interact with from time to time, given opportunity, and therefore, over time, they have to be more established. So, in the case of, let me go ahead and flip up to that one just a second. So, in the case of a recurring persona, we're having more details about that person available because the players are going to want to know, why is this person still here, and how did we know it was the same person? What evidence do you present to say that this person that looks like somebody you saw last week actually is the person you saw last week? So there has to be a more clear definition of who that person is, a more in-depth description of them, perhaps what they look like, how tall they are, and whatever role they were in. As you said, in this case, the one of the two gnomes in the party is a short order cook, and the other one is a pastry chef. And so it was the pastry chef who was approached by someone that they had seen before. And therefore, I had to give more description of who this chef's assistant was that they were talking to. Now, I don't think they yet know her name. We haven't gone to that level of contact yet. But I do have to have pretty much a full persona profile established for that person, because at any point the players might say, "Oh, we were afraid you're going to be in trouble, so you need to come with us." And all of a sudden we've got a new NPC and new NEP really drawn into our story as well. And so we have to have not only the connective details and how the party found them, but if you see, I've got an acronym here at the bottom, EBTKS. You'll find that on each of these, I've come up with a clever little acronym to remember what it is you need to build if you're building a recurring persona, and that is everything but the kitchen sink. So in the case of a recurring persona, they're going to see that person time and again, so you better get to know them pretty well, because the players are going to want to know them as well. So you have to be able to step back in that role. If I gave her an accent, I've got to remember which accent I'm using for that person, so that the players don't feel discombobulated, that the persona's true to what they do know, and that I'm not overfeeding information. Conversely, that I'm not denying them information that story persona, that recurring persona might know. It's also important to note that recurring personas also can be depended on to push back on the players should they ask questions that are inappropriate or too personal or something. So they're going to feel more tangible, because they're going to be someone with whom you're wanting to get to be connected and close, and that person therefore is going to be reserving their right to not want that. So let's go back to the window dressing for just a second. I didn't get to go over my acronym there. So with the window dressing, as I said, a quick description, adverb and adjective. Generally, you need to have something that gives a reason for them to be in the scene. So if you are in a town and you want a couple of people walking across the street, then it can be a couple of vendors, it can be a couple of drunkards, it can be a couple of young lovers, whatever. There has to be a reason for them to be in the scene. But brevity is the soul of wit, and the more I tell you about an NPC, the more likely you're going to want to get to know more. So in this case, the acronym that I use for window dressing is JTFM. Gene, can you guess what that stands for? JTFM?
No, I really can't because I'm not sure about what the J is, so I can't lead into it. The EBT KS was pretty easy.
Okay. Well, JTFM is just the facts, ma'am.
Oh,
In today's world, it's just the facts,
oh,
man, because nobody will
come on!
remember.
I should have known that
That's why
Friday. The next,
I lobbed it to you, Gene, so you could actually get that one. But yes, just the
God,
facts.
yeah,
Just the
Sergeant
facts.
Friday.
Exactly. Exactly. So,
Oh God, you pull it back from
I
long
do.
ago.
I put us both in our place by reminding everybody how really old we are.
Hey, the cartoons were Felix the Cat and Betty Boop when we first got a TV.
Well, yeah, but you had a TV. You had to have somebody on a bicycle behind the house charging it up because there wasn't enough electricity to run in houses yet.
We ran it off the trolley tracks outside.
Yeah, well, I think it's funny that when I talked to I talked to my son and his daughter the other day and mentioned something about my granddad Carl Bogart and his move from Indiana to Kansas way back in the day, and I mentioned that he came across in a Conestoga, and she goes, "A Cona what?" I said, "A Conestoga." Says, "Is that a kind of Winnebago?" I said, "Well, sort of." But it was only a 2-horse version, so.
Or two oxen.
Yeah, I think they had four. I think they had 4 horses. I don't recall exactly, but I do know that.
Depend on the terrain.
Right. Well, it was
Yeah.
straight. It was straight from Indiana to Kansas, and the only place they had to take the wheels off it was when they crossed the Mississippi, because they actually used the base of the Connie as a boat, and
Yep.
and
They
pulled
cocked it.
across.
They
Pulled.
cocked it just like they cock a ship
Yep.
with oakum and pitch and
Yep. They
floated across.
pulled it across. Once they got it up on the other side, it never took. They never had to take the wheels off again. They said it was the best. I remember where the wood came from. They told me. I think it was Kentucky. Best Kentucky wood they ever bought because those wheels didn't break the entire trip.
Could have been hickory. They make
Yeah.
oak, wheels out of hickory because it's so tough.
Yep. But I just remember that would be in the stories. And when I told Evie, she's like, that's a that was a Conowata? Was that a Winnebago? No. So, all right, but the third of the types of NEPs, which we're not using the NPC term anymore because I don't know. Have you noticed, Gene, how much people are like misusing and kind of abusing the NPC term when they talk about other things? Like I watched on a sitcom the other day, just happened to be passing by, and somebody was told to not be such an NPC, but there was no context, and none of the people in the party or on the TV show were gamers that I know of, and so it's like, why did they use a reference? And I guess it's a pop culture thing, but it really bugs me because they're to me it looks like they're presenting it in a negative light. That if you're an NPC, you don't do anything. You stand around waiting for, someone to push the button, get the bacon kind of response. Have you noticed any of that in recent
Well,
times?
no, I haven't heard that term that way, but my society is pretty much ruled by gamers. My contacts are ruled by
What? You
gamers.
have a circle of friends that play games? How strange. What planet are you from?
Well,
Oh, Nycos,
with
we know.
yeah, yeah, 4 times a week with you, once a week, and then when cons come,
Hmm.
you know,
Yep. All right. So beyond the window dressing and beyond the recurring personas are the story persona. And a great example of this is our new new friend on Sundays, uh, the Lord Marshal,
Yes.
grievously wounded.
Yeah. Grievously wounded.
Yes, grievously wounded.
Lee is the middle name, but it's
Yes,
said all together. It comes out. We had fun with that
we
name.
did. We did. It took a good long time to get rolling past his name, but
And yeah, we named his brother too. Previously wounded.
no, Privis. We
Privis
yeah. So
Lee.
yeah, it's grievously and previously. Even though
Yeah.
you should have the yes in there, it doesn't matter. Next, in this story persona, therefore, we clearly have to have a definition of what this Lord Grievous looks like, and of course, some of the players argued that he should have 4 arms and be made of metal, and I said no, he's not a technomata, and no, he doesn't have 4 arms and all of that. Can't have that until he's horribly wounded in a battle, which may or may not happen in the future. But currently, he doesn't have multiple arms. Although he's allying with folks that have multiple arms, right, Gene? As he's now representing the very generous and loving people of the priest kingly order.
Don't get me started on those creatures.
But you have to have, in the case of a story persona, you have to have a description, certainly, but you also have to have the details and the intent. What is it that the SCP is doing? Why is this persona become a part of the story? And that's because that person is delivering information and going to be adding fuel to the fire, so to speak. And you'll at least want to give some hints at their motives. But they don't have to be as deeply developed as the recurring persona because they won't be interacting with them with any extreme frequency. Right, regularity, frequency. So
they might be significant, but they're occasionally significant.
Right. So therefore, their acronym is CEFGW. Can you guess that one, Gene?
And go.
C. Charlie Echo Foxtrot Golf Whiskey.
Charlie Echo Foxtrot
Golf Whiskey.
Golf Whiskey. No. CEFG.
Yeah. These are the details that are close enough for government work.
Close enough for government work?
Uh-huh. So there's slightly more detail than there would be for, considerably more than window dressing, slightly more than a standard persona that you might talk to once in a while, like a recurring. But the story persona are there really to fulfill a specific role. Now there's one.
Rose.
What's that?
Davros.
Davros actually falls into the final category.
Oh, okay.
And that are the foils and echoes. Foil being a term for those that are going to be nemesis, dangerous threats, nuanced creepiness from beyond the edge of the map that haven't quite been interacted with yet. But mainly the ones that the players will be matching wits with. And then echoes are those hyper enthusiastic allies that show up from time to time to be helpful in places where the party has run into problems and can't get out themselves. It's the mechanisms that I have built in for when we need the finesse of a big scene, but we don't have the personnel at the scene. In your case, you've met with Lord Wallace, the mage, has been in several different stories as an echo. You've also written into different.
My first one with Catlin.
Yep.
The guy who crosses time and places in different times and places.
Exactly. So with them, you'll have to have for the foils and echoes. You're obviously going to want a full persona profile because the players are going to want to dive directly into the back of this person's life and possibly dig out all the nitty gritty details. You also need to have an established story for how he got to be. Ironically, the best way to create an established story for a foil is to let the players engage with him and beat him and let him narrowly escape. I think Gene could name 3 or 4 that became really problematic in the 8th iteration.
Lord Volantre.
I knew it. Top of the list. Top of the list. Lord
How many
Volantre.
times did we kill him in how many different places?
Well, you actually at least in 2 different dimensions, plus in 2 different spaces. So yeah, yeah.
2 different iterations.
Mm-hmm.
We killed him off in the 7th. Whatchamacallit and I killed him off in the 8th.
Yep.
And now he's back in the 9th. Back in his old home stomping ground.
Yes. Well, that was so fortunate that he came along because the city of, by the way, it's being called Caldera now, because he's trying to re-establish the heritage of the place, and because he came in with such benevolence and with such clear funding and was able to help restore the city. They're just really in love with the Lord Volantre right now. I know you really want to hear that.
Yeah, it's sickening. Knowing what I know, but I can't say anything.
Well, it is also interesting to note, and you won't be until you get there, but the Easter egg I will drop is that apparently he's having to get involved in rather extensive excavations on the north face of the mountain.
Oh, that's where Jadaroon's entrance is.
No. Jadaroon's entrance is in directly under your associate's house. No,
Yeah,
but what structure did he used to own on the north flank of the mountain? I'll let you just muse
Was
on that
that
for a
the
while.
Vivaldi's place, or that place when we went down and found the pit fiends coming in?
Yes, that was actually Volantre's personal hold. That was his house.
Had such charming guests at his party.
He did. So the main thing also with the foils and the echoes is you need to leave room in the persona development for improvisation, because each iteration's players, each group that engage with your NPC, your NEPs, are going to have a different take on how to approach them. We've got, for example, a couple of players on in our Tuesday group that would be more than willing to embrace Lord Volantre with open arms.
In Tuesday's night group?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, well, and Monday's group too, because you've got Yellow Veil is now infecting both groups. So it's going to be fun. This iteration is going to be a lot of fun. So, if given all of the personalities and persons you've met on Nykos, who would you name as your top 3 NPCs, NEPs?
Well, the problem is Genya has changed. There's her descendant, but it's not the same as Genya. But Genya was the one I remembered very much because she played a big part in my first character's story.
Mm-hmm.
Lord Volantre.
Okay.
Davros.
Well, okay. So because we're doing this for a new iteration and a new audience, why don't you describe them all a little bit? So when you say Genya, of whom are you speaking? Obviously, it's the priestess from the 8th iteration.
From the 7th.
7th.
The now.
From the now. Okay.
Now, she's the one that took me to Cauldron.
Uh-huh.
And then she rudely kicked me out before I even got to be a full acolyte. I was like almost 15 and was looking forward to become fully pledged to the church. And she says, you have to go out and learn to be a cleric. And I got kicked out on the street in the middle of a street fight between two thieves guild. That's all
But
that was
tell
my
it.
opening.
Describe Genya though. What do you really know about her?
Well, what do I know about her? She was a good looking woman, seemed to be pious, was good at teaching. I always had a high regard for her, that she had brought me all the way with her, a farm girl from nowhere into this huge city,
Hmm.
and saw to my being cared for in the temple, um and so I decided to, you know devote my life to the church, and but then things happened and Jenya changed,
Hmm.
and she changed several times, and I just never could figure out who or what she was. Honestly, I mean, it got really confusing through the life of my first character to try to find out why did she push me out just like that, without, you're fine, you're ready, go. And
Hmm.
it's like that was my mother in absentia of my nana. Or um, so yeah. The other one that I remembered very well was, of course, Peter Cottontail, Flopsy, and Mopsy.
Well, who who were they to you? And since we were talking NEPs, obviously these are not players personas. These are actually uh,
No, these are, yeah,
what other people
one
would
of,
call NPCs. So tell us a little bit how they got to be a part of your community and why were so memorable.
um, they were Sec Gen rabbits, and the
Okay.
group that
Okay.
I
Hang on.
finally,
For clarification, SecGen means
that means they're anthropomorphic rabbits.
second Genesis. Yes. I
Second
just
Genesis,
wait.
they're a cross between human DNA and animal DNA of a variety of different types of animals.
Yes, more to the specifics. They are uplifted animal genetics, so
Oh yeah,
they're
yeah,
not mortal. They don't have human genetics. And they have their own anthropomorphic uplift. So
yeah,
just for clarification, I just want you know since we don't not our audience isn't all made up of only Nycos fans, so they may not know
yeah.
the term. So
And
they were a family of second Genesis or sec gen. Uh,
the group had taken them in and was raising them up, and Peter was the brother, Peter Cottontail, and then Flopsy and Mopsy were the two girls.
mm-hmm,
And so we were always on the lookout for them. But Peter, man, Peter was the adventurous sort.
mm-hmm,
And so it proved through his life of the seventh iteration and all into the eighth, where he's become a bit of a legend and his family's become a legend. And, so
mm-hmm.
he's become a rather significant, uh, one of our new, relatively new player characters. Persona is a descendant of the Cottontails.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it was just kind of really, interesting that an NPC now has a descendant who is a player persona
And
in
then
the character,
one of the enjoined. Yes. So an
one of the enjoying.
NEP's descendant is an enjoined person. So yep,
Yep.
that's an interesting take on it. Um, would you say
Um,
that the role of the NEPs in the world of Nikos is equal to or less than that of the enjoined person who happens to play for a few weeks and then quit?
that's totally dependent on how much they play while they're there. Do they come and sit down and just listen, or are they participating?
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Usually they end up participating.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you find one that just it isn't the game for them, but we also have uh, significant others or fathers of young players or uh, girlfriends of you
Yeah.
know young men that enjoy playing, and they come and play, and then the next thing we know, they're playing, and that's happened a couple times
Yeah.
where we've had that happen. The
Yeah.
father who became first the familiar of his daughter who was playing a fire mage, and he was her familiar because he couldn't stop giving you know hints to his daughter. So
Fa- fatherly advice cost him because he had to then play. How horrible! Oh darn!
oh, what do you mean? He loved being that character. He was a cricket, Jiminy Cricket.
Yep.
That
Yep.
was
Gimini.
and
Gimini. He made hard G, not a J.
yeah, Giminy Cricket. Well, yes, we can't have Jiminy. It
I
has to
don't
be
know.
Giminy. Yeah, but because he was small, he could go under the doors in the giant's place and get a look all the way around to see if he
Mm-hmm.
could find the thing we're looking for without having to us trying to break down doors that were built in the giant's house.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so again, and he got roped in, and now he plays his own character.
Yep.
Does he? Does he play more than Melkor?
He played. Um, hang on a second. I'm trying to get the screen set up for you. Where is it? It should be there.
Because he's Melkor with Catelyn,
Oh no. Okay.
and
So yeah, the 2 weeks that he played uh, in the other on the Tuesday night group, he played Lander.
oh, he played Lander. Okay.
Yeah. There we go. So
And so
now
now he's
I put your lovely face on the screen now. After all this time, was fiddling with figuring out how to get it done. So I've got you up finally.
uh, God, I'm capturing to tell you later, whatever. No, digitally.
Yeah, yeah. You're caught in the interwebs,
Yep.
and you will never be free because that's the reality is that you will be forever.
Oh no, when I'm in my wheelchair and have somebody driving me out there and pushing me in, yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah, we we were just talking about that the other day that you're endeavoring to try to find a way to come on Tuesdays as well, and the group responded that especially um, Victor wants to instead set up a carpool for us to come down to your end
Oh,
of the woods and run a game at Brookhurst or something.
okay.
So we're going to be exploring that. I put out a petition the other day about it, and we've gotten some at least nibbles about it. So we'll see how that goes. By the way, if you
Okay.
guys are fans of NycosRPG and would like to know more, do check out our Patreon account at patreon.com/Nycos, and also catch our videos over on YouTube. There's over 750 videos now. If you can't believe that, Gene, all the way back to when you were a spring chicken only 10 years ago, when you first started playing with us.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah,
But that was
back when you had the other leg.
uh, no, I think for as long as I knew you, I only had the one leg.
I know.
'Cause I lost that in 2011.
No, no.
I didn't quite know you
I
then.
I was speaking of the fact that you got your new prosthetic. I was making a joke about your old
Oh, my
prosthetic.
old leg. Yeah,
Yes.
I had my old leg then. I
Yes.
have my brand new one.
I could see you putting it on a pedestal and marking it as, 1,000 miles walked in Nikos,
More than that. Walk, flew, or hoofed, one way or the other.
Yep,
We've
yep.
been around.
So we are coming up on we're at the mark where we start doing the wind down. Is there something that is there any one NPC that you think I do the best as far as my portrayal of that NPC? I know which one I have in my head that I hope you're going to say, but I have no idea whether you'll even remember him or not.
Was it in Miri's time?
No,
Okay.
it was you ran into him originally as you crossed the continental divide, so to speak, in Crawlin.
Roll up. Continental Divide. Oh, I remember somebody that we met in a white building. That was where old Trantor was fastened down as a city.
Yeah,
The
no.
flying city had the
Although I
anchor.
did enjoy playing that NPC, that's not who I'm referring to. No, this one was a. I let me just put it this way. He was instrumental in war. Obviously, you're not going to get it, so
Nope.
I'll
I'm sitting here blanking out. So I was trying to think of a bard.
no. I didn't want you to go that direction. I want you to think of a person who dealt in weapons of war.
Oh, Angus Hereford.
Yes, he's my
Yes.
he's my favorite of all of
He's
the
well, he's probably the
NEPs.
most fleshed out of the higher level characters.
NEPs,
He,
yeah.
yeah, he owns a flying ship,
No,
probably
I
more
don't know
than
if he's the
one.
best fleshed out. I think I've got Xavier down pretty good, and I've got uh, all of the avatars down pretty well.
Hmm.
But no, Angus is my favorite to play. I have a lot of his backstory internalized, and I enjoy picking at my southern drawl, ta-
He
reminding
wears
you he's
he
a
wears
Texan,
cowboy boots.
and goddamn corks on the end of his horns because Lily can't stand it when I tear up the wallpaper.
Yeah, or her curtains. I remember.
Alrighty, well, we did what I wanted to do, which was to go over the NEPs a second time, give a little bit more fleshed out response to them. The real key to me about the non-enjoined persons, the people that the players interact with, is if they don't feel dimensionally real, then it's awful hard for the players to invest in, say, protecting the city unless they know several citizens. If they don't have a feel for the kind of respect they're going to get back for their reaction, there's not as much desire for them to interact.
Or to putting the effort out.
Mm-hmm. Well, the reason why you mentioned Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail is that your group took them in, but from an NEP standpoint, they became RPs really fast because they were the ones who were always at the house tending to the crops, making sure the fields were tilled and all of that, and making sure
Yeah.
that the property was safe in your absence.
The house that was in a pocket dimension of its own.
Mm-hmm.
You had to go to a certain light post and stand there and kind of then somebody had to come get me because I could never figure out how it was.
Yeah.
Not when I first, joined
Well,
that group.
the funny thing is that Rio was so Good King Kush was so involved in developing it that he gave me three separate maps of what the home tree what the tree looked like and the space under it, so that I didn't know which map to send him to or send you to. So, alrighty. Well, Gene, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. Thank
Oh,
you, viewers, for putting up with us for one more moron episode, as in moron, non-enjoined persona, and we're gonna continue to uh, look at role play in ways that you might not have before. We are going to be sharing some quick tips, such as the description mechanisms that I gave you and the acronyms I gave you tonight, and find even more ways to help your games become as spectacular at your house as well. Thank you again, and don't forget to check out our information. And if you want to know when I'm able to actually purchase a product, check out NycosRPG.com for the electronic versions. And if you want the hard copy, paper copy, they are available at lulu.com. And just do a search for my name and Nykos, and you'll find it.
Oh,
Alrighty. Go ahead, Gene.
I was just gonna say that the other game that we're thinking about starting is like in Anaheim. It's in Garden Grove, but it's only about 3 miles from Disneyland.
Right. We have to make sure I get a conversation with
Yeah,
Brookhurst before we commit to have people converge at their store. So
yeah.
let me get that handled first, though. We will be getting more information out, and those kind of updates come on Tuesdays. That's when we do Nikos News Day in the morning, where we talk about the property and its development and our game sessions and such, and then Nikos Nightly News from the Gnome Gnu's Network is in the evenings at 11 p.m. on Tuesdays. So until the next time, which will be tomorrow at 10 in the morning, have a great night, everybody. Thank you again, Gene.
You're welcome. I
And
enjoyed it.
right, we will see you all next time.